Hello and welcome to BRAIDAR, the Business of Beauty. This is episode 7, and I am your host, Jaden Paru. So, today we're going to be talking about, again, a kind of mixture of things, touching on some stuff that we talked about in previous episodes, such as, like, last week we were talking about film franchises and intellectual property and how to actually leverage that through your merchandise for different, or I would say, non sort of typical target audiences. Like we were talking about the whole Harley Quinn craze of 2016 and how sort of DC could have tapped into that in a sort of lifestyle brand way, kind of incorporating those like beauty brand and fashion, like imprint fashion brand sort of tactics and approaches to actually creating products that people want to buy to feel close to that like character or that that fandom that they're part of. And we also talked about wigs and specifically cosplay wigs. So that was really fun. If you want to kind of recap that or if you missed that episode, just send a message to the Braidar Instagram account and we can give you kind of exclusive behind the scenes access to our archive of previous episodes. So today I thought it would be interesting to kind of touch on some things in previous episodes that I wanted to flesh out, but which perhaps were like not the main focus of that episode. So I didn't really go into it at that time. But the first thing I think would be something quite interesting that my friend, she actually was the one who came up with this, like the inspiration for this idea. Because we were talking on Wednesday and I was telling her about the show, and then she was kind of talking about how, like perfume adverts, for example, they obviously there's no way for them to communicate like the experience of smelling the like different notes and the different like scents and whatever is in the perfume. Obviously, you can say this is a jasmine perfume with undertones of vanilla and whatever lavender, but I mean it's a bit lame if you just say it. So I get why they're trying to visualize it. They're trying to make it abstract and make it linked to like a feeling and a sort of sense of if you wear this scent, you will have this like self actualizing moment, like swag, like you'll be so, I don't know, like kind of like exaggerated effects, but then really tapping into like the values and the not insecurities, but the like the aspirations of the target audience. So that's why they use like famous models or actresses or actors, and that's why they always have like almost like dreamlike scenarios where that person's like the center of attention. They're flying up, like lions are flying in the sky with them. They're like, I don't know, like swimming under the water with animals and like just weird random things, but that really sort of distill that sense of like limitlessness and a sense of almost like you can kind of operate on this weird abstract plane if only you get this scent, you can like access that like top level of existence, which sounds a bit, it's a bit question mark when you kind of break it down like that. But the reason why she was saying that was because we were talking about how with perfume you can't kind of make them smell it. So you have to kind of make them feel something that you are implying is linked to that scent and the experience of like wearing the scent and like that whole like aspirational self kind of thing. And we're also talking about car adverts and how with car adverts they kind of do the same thing, but obviously not to the same artistic extent. They might add a bit more of a narrative in there. They might kind of have some more like a voiceover kind of structuring the whimsical aspects. Like even if they do random like shots of the car like zooming around this road that's like on the edge of a cliff, and it's like and then they show the car like on the beach like splashing through the surf and everything, and they kind of still use like either words on the screen or a narrator to kind of structure the the abstractness of that and be like, yeah, discover your limitlessness now with I don't know, four-wheel drive in this new version of whatever car it is. So it's kind of guiding you through like the sense making of like what is happening, like what is this. But we're talking about those, like those two as one category, and then also on the other hand, she mentioned celebrity like perfumes and celebrity beauty brands, and how those are kind of like I wouldn't. Okay, so to kind of put this, because obviously I get that why there's a lot of, I wouldn't say backlash, but there's a lot of skepticism around like especially celebrity like makeup brands and perfume brands, because it's now becoming like, I don't know, it's almost becoming like, print on demand t-shirts. Like obviously in itself is a good business, but it's definitely commodified. Like the whole purpose of it is to commodify like a certain process or a certain like product, and then because that market is so saturated, like celebrity beauty brands and like especially, yeah, I think it's fair to say like especially ones that don't feel connected to their like personal brand, their star image. It just feels kind of like drop shipping, like white label type of approach. There's definitely a lot of skepticism, even from fans, I think, as to like what like why would, if the product is not like a premium product and you're not invested in it in your kind of like the the public persona that you put out as your celebrity self is not invested in it, then why would I buy it? Why are you like doing it? It just feels more like a bandwagon. So we're talking about that and talking about how the two different sort of groups of um, like types of campaigns, how they kind of present their stuff differently. And that got me thinking, like, I feel there's some missed opportunities in like both sort of uh, like groups of approaches. Because with the celebrity like makeup lines, if you like take a look at their social media marketing, for example, you go on the Instagram page, for instance, and you see the celebrity themselves like posing with the palette, or posing with the lipstick and putting on the lipstick or what have you. And I feel like even though they do theme it in terms of like they put the background, they put like the filters, they might like be wearing something that's specific to the like branding of their like makeup brand or skincare brand. I feel like it's so, there's just something about that approach that is too, it's not enough. It's like too, I feel like anyone can kind of do that, anyone can brand their stuff with like purposeful like backgrounds and lightings and like color gels and what have you. And I think that's good that that kind of approach is now very like democratized and accessible. But if you're implying that this product is you, like, how, because it's part of their brand, it's essentially saying like this is an extension of myself or my public self or my celebrity like persona. It's not enough to kind of do what, like, it's not enough to do what someone who, like, if you're trying to say that celebrities are kind of a different, on a different plane than other types of like public figures, like let's say like creators or influencers. This is not me saying that they're better, by the way, because that's a whole other conversation. But I just don't really like. I just somehow don't buy the whole like worshipping human beings aspect of celebrity culture. But anyway, other that's a whole other thing. But if they're trying to say like as part of that celebrity like star image, intrinsic to that is a sort of like A-list like social grouping and social like othering of them as like people you expect a certain quality of output from, then it's not enough to create a brand that's on the same level as someone who is like, I can't explain it, but like someone who got their influence or got their like sort of their public figure status in a more like democratized way, or in a more like, I started doing this in my room or in my dorm kind of way, and then I grew it and I worked on it and I built it up from that status. It's not something that's coming out from like an industrial sort of complex like Hollywood, or like, I guess, the music industry, like broadly speaking, in terms of like Western sort of American like popular music. It's within the Hollywood bubble. So I think it fits to just say like Hollywood as a construct that kind of like encompasses music and like movies and whatever else, like what other like showbiz basically. It's not enough for things coming out of that industrial complex to be indistinguishable from things coming out of like a like I don't even know what the word would be, but the like the influencer equivalent of like bedroom pop, but obviously not for music. It could be for fashion, it could be for lifestyle content, it could be for literally anything. But to me, I think that's where a lot of the brands are like struggling because not only is the branding indistinguishable from something that I, as a consumer or like a prosumer, if you will, could do, but by extension, because the actual product, as I said, like oftentimes it's just like white label type of approach to making the stuff, then it's it's just it's not there's no difference basically. So yeah, I was hoping that this episode I can kind of unpack that a bit and explain like why I think it's like there's some opportunities for both groupings of like campaigns to learn a bit from each other and maybe like take on some aspects of each other to kind of differentiate themselves and better communicate like what they want to achieve. And yeah, another thing about this episode is that I thought it could be really fun for people to call into the show and give some kind of questions and all that good stuff. So yeah, we have one caller calling in. So I'm going to go and take that call now and then respond to the question live on air. I think it could be really cool. So dialing in now. Yeah, we're just waiting for the call's connected. Hello?
Well, I must say, so I have to commend you on, taking this journey, informing us, like telling us all the things that we probably didn't know and didn't know that we needed to know. So thank you for, playing out this whole, being in this space and, giving that service, if you will, to the community. So my real question really is, what do you feel? I mean, with the advent of technology, you're able to do this podcast and all of that. So, what would you think is the really sort of main message that you are putting across to everyone who's listening and people who are talking to people who are listening? What would be that one big message that you want everyone to take away from this podcast? Thank you.
Thank you for that question. That's a really good one. And also thanks for listening to the episodes, like tuning into like every week and everything. Really appreciate that. So thank you.
You're welcome.
So I would say in terms of the main message, perhaps just for people to be able to take away things that they can use in their day-to-day life. I think that would be one of my main goals for like just across the different episodes and things. Like for example, even though the core of the show is to kind of reflect Braidar, the platform, and like how students with beauty side hustles can kind of maximize like the effort that they're putting into their like their passion, their talents and things like that, the effort that they're putting into making that like profitable to make to basically make sure that that effort is not like going to waste and that their like services and their offerings are actually visible and that they can like make the most of that time that they're choosing to spend on it because like they could be choosing to study or they could be choosing to do like any other manner of thing. So it's all about like making that worthwhile for people. And I think even in like out with that for people who don't necessarily have their own like beauty side hustle. Maybe they're not braiders, they're not nail technicians, they're not like lash technicians or something. Just for people to know, I feel, what other brands and other like corporations are thinking of, whether that's like their future strategy in terms of like when we talked about the metaverse and digital beauty, when we were talking about like virtual worlds and how that's tapping into the sense of like aspirational self and like trying to, in a sense, like commoditize and monetize that whole like virtual economy for their own brands, or even if it's just things like working with influencers and UGC creators to kind of be able to distinguish what, like, to be able to distinguish what is just someone else's output and like their opinion and their sort of expression of something, and what is your kind of like your own take on it or your view on it. Like, even if, for example, when we were talking about aesthetics and belonging to a particular subculture and that sense of like social identity that you get from tapping into a certain aesthetic, there's still some value in being able to say that I don't have to adhere to all the sort of like implicit rules or all the different like pieces or like clothing pieces that make up the whole like iconography of a particular aesthetic. It's not like a must. It's more like a suggestion or like something that should remain fun. So I think as long as people are able to take away that sense of like just seeing behind the scenes of like the thinking of some brands or even behind the scenes of some social constructs that just kind of developed but maybe are not like backed by a particular brand, for them to be able to see those like inner workings and then decide for themselves how they're going to respond to it and just move through like life, which is becoming more and more like digital, and obviously a lot of it is online, to be able to move through that kind of like existence or growing up in that world in a way that you keep yourself as like the most important thing, not the like aesthetic you belong, like quote unquote belong to, or like subscribe to, not the influencer that you like, not the brand that you've invested a lot of like money into their products and things. So I would say, yeah, just that would probably be the main takeaway.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you so much. I really take that on board. It's about us being true to ourselves, while we're, diving into all the things around us. I totally agree with that. And, with helping all the different people in the ecosystem to, do their bit, enabling them, showing them how technology is working and all of those things that are available to help them, succeed. So thank you so much. I hate this. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, thanks for calling in as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, bye.
Bye. So that was a question from one of our lovely listeners. And yeah, I hope that also helped you, other, listeners who are listening to that like question and answer, to kind of get a feel for what BRAIDAR, the business of beauty, is all about. So yeah, that was like a lovely little segment that I think definitely will become more of a like regular thing on the show, I think. So if anyone has questions that they want to ask, they want to call in to just support or just share their view, yeah, you're more than welcome to do that. So, the other thing I was saying about, like, what I wanted to talk about on this episode was the whole thing about celebrity beauty brands. And then on the other side, you've got, like, perfume adverts and car adverts. Okay, so, what I was saying about how their approach is to the celebrity, like, beauty brands, it's to, like, it's not showing that A-list quality. It's not showing that sort of, okay, like this makes sense that this person kind of positions themselves as separate from the public because their like output is reflecting that sort of like star quality. It's not really doing that, I don't think. Maybe there are some that do, and good for them. But I'm just saying in terms of how people that I'm aware of seem to be perceiving the brand, and these people are in the target audience, mind you, for the actual like products. So I think one thing that they could kind of tap into is like, again, you know how I was saying in that other episode about aesthetics, how an aesthetic allows a brand or allows a startup to work backwards from like if an aesthetic is the output of what your target audience likes already, it's like basically a mood board showing you what they like, then in that way, aesthetics are a tool for you to like reverse engineer your customer avatar, which I talked about before in episode, I think it was episode 3, I believe. So if you're, you want to catch up, just contact the BRAIDAR Instagram, and then you can get some access to that episode. But basically, customer avatars are so central to the success of branding and the success of like brand itself, in terms of like not just the marketing like branding, but actual like what do you do? What items do you make? Do you make 2 types of mascara and 1 lip gloss, or do you make 3 types of lip gloss and 1 lip liner? Like what is the environment, and what are the consumers telling you that they want, you know? So in that same way, I feel like celebrity brands, or whoever's the person running the brand, because I know I'm not really under any impression that's actually the celebrity like doing everything for the brand, but whoever's in charge of that needs to go back to the drawing board and say, okay, what on one hand of like the whiteboard, if they want to say, you write out what are the qualities of this, celebrity, this star. What are the actual aspects of their star image? And there's something in media studies called Richard Dyer's star theory. If you pull it up on Google, you read up on it a little bit, you can kind of get a sense of what I'm talking about. But there's certain aspects of a celebrity, whatever industry they're in, that the audience is responding to, whether it's their like sort of proficiency, like whether it's singing or like sort of embodied performances in their acting, whether it's like kind of outside of those performative aspects, whether it's their like down to earth sort of like personality, like in interviews, or when they're not like on screen or on the stage, whether it's their personal style, whether it's their like confidence. You really need to distill those and list those out, because the other half of the whiteboard, you should write what what are the fans responding to, like, and I'm talking about not necessarily people who just listen to you like on occasion. I'm talking about the fans who like they have a collective name for themselves. There's a collective like noun out there to describe these like dedicated fans of yours. So you need to investigate what is it that they're responding to. And it might be a little bit hard to do that, but obviously, like, again, circling back to the aesthetics episode and the influencer episode, you need to go to where they like hang out. You need to go to where they like engage with each other and like celebrate this like fandom, and just share things about the fan and like talk and everything. You need to go where they do that. And whether that's like in the comments of a YouTube edit, whether that's on a fan Instagram page, you need to go there and you need to analyze the comments and like what are the themes coming up in the comments. Whether it's like, OMG, I love her wig today. Like, wow, she looks so good in these like frontal wigs. She should wear them all the time. Whether it's like, wow, he's so like humble every time. Like, he doesn't have to. He could be like everyone else, but he's not. Like, he chooses to still be polite to this interviewer. Like, whether or not it's like an objective sentiment or like an accurate sentiment is not necessarily important. What's important is the passion, like, and the like emphasis behind what they're saying, because that's showing that they actually like believe this and they have like a conviction about this. Because again, going back to the influence episode, going back to the aesthetics episode a little bit, it's about like these are the things that underpin those parasocial relationships, which at the end of the day is what these celebrity brands are built off of. It's like that parasocial feeling of like, oh, my best friend, she's like making a lipstick line, I want to support her. Or it's like, oh yeah, I know, like, I'm familiar with her style, her routine, like I can really see myself in this, I'm gonna buy it. So to actually understand these parasocial relationships, you need to break down what it is that the audience is responding to, that is like fueling this relationship and fueling this interaction, which is like inherently one-sided in most cases. So yeah. So ideally, after the person, like brand manager or like I don't know, even if it's the company that is making it, that at the end of that whole production like phase, they kind of paste the label of the star on the product. That company, in order for like, I guess for that like business relationship to be successful, it would be useful for them to like do this or similar exercise. So ideally, at this stage, you've got like a whiteboard full of like these two lists, and then from there, you should have a clear idea of like, okay, you're getting the like the sort of sentiments and the actual tangible thing that they like. So after that, you need to kind of map that onto the things that they use or the things that they want or the things that they need. And again, going back into the influencer episode, you go to those like you go on Instagram, you check the comments, you go to their like pages, and then you check what are the things that they're saying, I wish I had this? What are the things that they're saying, like, oh, I use this every day? Whether it's like, oh, I use this lip gloss every day, I love the sparkles, like whether it's, oh, I wish this nail polish came in this style, like it would be perfect, but I just have to make do with this like version of it. But I really wish that it were like I don't know, like pearlescent kind of thing, you know? You look for those gaps in like what they're asking for, or those like I don't even know what you want to call it, but like those signals, like those light bulbs or those like neon signs of like I love this thing. I love this thing. I use it every day. Or on the other side, like this gap of like I wish this were here. We all wish this were here. Like wouldn't life be so much better if this were here? And then you basically take note of those. And then when it comes to actual product development for the actual brand, what you say is, okay, we've got the list of stuff, like the actual products that we could make and that we know the audience, like that there's a demand for. And then on the whiteboard, we've got the list of like how to make it, or rather how to like brand it, how to market it to appeal, like intrinsically appeal to what the audience is asking for. So in that kind of way, you've essentially got your whole approach like written down. You just have to like from there like actually make it into a proper like you actually have to sit down and start like whether it's designing the products, whether it's like breaking down different aspects of like supply chain organization, whether it's breaking down like testing formulations and getting in contact with sort of companies that handle that and planning out like timelines and everything like that, project management, that's when that will start. But the actual what of what you're doing, the actual ingredients of what you're doing is on that whiteboard. And you need to adhere to that thing. You can't say like, oh, my audience likes orange. Like they love when I wear orange. They say orange is my best color. Like they love orange. But I just feel like blue. I don't have a reason why. I just feel like blue because it's my brand, so I can do what I want. Even though that's really true, and I do think to an extent, like having that sort of self determination and not being like I don't know, like so beholden to what other people think or want is very, very important in life. But I just think business is one of those aspects where it's slightly not about you in a way. Like it's still about you, but it's not like 100% about you as it would be for like your personal style, for example, or like what you choose to do, or like, that kind of thing. Because now it's about what's best for the company. So it's kind of that fine line of like, what do you value more? Like, do you value the success of this brand, or do you kind of value like just having that creative output and just having that experience of like, oh, I made a like makeup line and it's really fun, it's exciting, and it's in the color that I want. Like, assuming like maybe if the celebrity wants to use it themselves, like I do understand that would have some appeal, like having it actually be what you want as a celebrity. But definitely you just have to decide on the priorities. And if you, let's say you want to prioritize the success of the actual brand or like product line, then you may have to go with what they want. It's kind of like, no, I'm not going to use that example. Yeah. But um, yeah, that's kind of what I would say. And in terms of like we've got that kind of basis and that kind of foundation down, right? So in terms of like how that could look in the branding, the marketing of the actual thing, that's where the comparison to the car and perfume adverts come in. Because what my friend was saying was that basically those car perfume adverts are so abstract and they're so like sort of creating a feeling and like an atmosphere, and it's kind of like for you to kind of overlay your own like sense making on top of what like the stimuli that they're putting out into the world, which is kind of like it's not nonsensical, but it's interesting, it's artistic, expressive, it's a thing, it's definitely a thing. So I think that maybe like tapping into a little bit of that could be useful for like celebrity brands, and not in the sense of like completely making it like because obviously celebrity perfume brands, they are tapping into that like whimsical, non-naturalistic, like random, absurdist, slightly like approach because they're like perfume adverts. But those I think those do see a little bit more success than the makeup brands, just because of that aspect of like no one is gonna mix the whimsy and the weird and the abstract in quite the same way as you have done. So just by that, it's giving you a bit of like an individual quality, and like separating you in a way that like a white label product cannot, or a way that like a like photo shoot that's kind of too like not every day. Like it's not bad photo shoot, but it's just too much like what an influencer could do, that it's not even like separating you. So yeah, I think tapping more into like, for example, with the car adverts, they could show like a family, right? And they're packing their picnic basket and they're putting their like sandwiches in it, and they put it into the like they press something on the key of the car key, and then the boot starts like transforming like some kind of Autobot type of situation. And then obviously the audience is like, what, are you serious, like the car is so cool, so futuristic. And then they're kind of like the creatives, the advertisers are using that narrative to show off the actual features of the car. I think that that's a little bit more value and a little bit more effective. And because you could easily translate that onto like a celebrity beauty brand, in that like you need to kind of ground it in a situation, and not just any situation. Like if it were a brand that's not necessarily attached to a persona, then I would say you could actually stop there and just create like a situation. Like for example, um the YouTuber that I was talking about in a previous episode, called Jazanye. She was talking about how like lipstick brand, you can kind of, in your adverts or your Instagram sort of reels, you can kind of create a scenario of like a girl's getting ready, like in her flat, like putting on the lipstick and like got a cool outfit. She goes outside to meet her friends, and like you're getting that whole narrative. But for a celebrity brand, the person is the whole reason why people are interested in this in the first place. So that narrative should actually come from like the person. And maybe you're asking like, but what's the difference? Because in the example that you just said now, like the girl getting ready to meet her friends, that's around a person, right? That's like centered on this character. But no, actually what I mean by it has to be centered on the person in a celebrity brand is like it has to be centered on what makes that celebrity, you know? And you see how now it's tying into what I said about the whiteboard, about like one side is what is it about the celebrity that's clicking with people? What is that magic sort of star quality that people are responding to? Like crucially, not just what they're good at, not just what their talent is, not what they think they're good at, what the audience is saying that they're good at, even if it's something very weird or like, okay, not weird, weird is the wrong word, because obviously you don't have to respond to everything that the audience is telling you is like what they like, because I don't know, it's just a whole other conversation about like the whole boundaries of like being a human being and then also being like a public consumable sort of thing, like a brand. And I think that blurs the lines of like what people expect of like public figures. But just it has to be something that they respond to, that you can like tap into or like distill, and that you want to, like, that you're comfortable with. So yeah, that being the advert being centered around the person has to come from like those things that the audience is responding well to and that they say is like the heart of their star image. So whether that's like, let's say it's about like her confidence, like on stage, she just owns the whole stage. Like even though, like let's say she owns the stage, she dances and sings, she like puts her whole heart into it. Then you say, okay, so like let's say for this campaign, we want to focus on the stage presence and the confidence. And then you say, okay, so we are focusing on like X product or Y product, like whether it's like a moisturizer, or actually no, I don't think skincare works as well for this particular example because it's a stage example. It's better to do something like makeup and something like um I don't know, but like something about a wow kind of factor or like a flashy factor. It's better to do that. There's a bit of a better alignment there. So your whole narrative of the like the actual ad can be about like getting ready to go on the stage, can be about like getting into that headspace of like, I don't know whether it's their alter ego that they tap into or like they just kind of prep themselves and do like vocal warm-ups or like physical, like just getting themselves pumped to go on the stage. I think you can really tap into that for the actual visuals of the ad. And you don't have to be like so, step by step. Like she is clearly standing up from her chair. She is clearly like doing a warm up. It can be more like, you know, all those singer documentaries, like on Netflix, for example, how they're actually quite abstract. Like it's actually, even though filming a concert, like filming concert proceedings should be straightforward in that like you could easily do like a single camera live stream set up like a wide shot, and then you've effectively like conveyed the concert experience, right? But these documentaries choose to kind of chop it up in a particular way. They choose to kind of use like, they actually mostly use like b-roll and show you that like behind the scenes of like the like walking through the like the different galleys and like from one dressing room to like the sort of backstage area, or like just different weird sort of almost liminal spaces and times in that whole greater like concert construct and concert, like the happenings in the concert. So I think that an advert would need to take that same approach, obviously distilled down into like a minute, obviously, but that same like tapping into a sense of exclusive footage, a sense of like we're showing you the quote unquote real her. We're showing you like the actual like what it's like, what it takes, and what it's like to kind of get into that headspace and like show up in that way. Like that it's not easy. That it's like not. It's not like not everyone can do it, but she does it, and she does it to such an extent that it's like impressive. You can easily communicate that if you take that kind of concert documentary, or world tour rather documentary approach. So yeah, the ad should kind of do that, and in that way you're kind of like taking inspiration from the car advert, and they're sort of using narrative to add guardrails to a very sort of like technically non-naturalistic like either like non-naturalistic editing or like just a non-naturalistic sort of story, applying that to a celebrity brand, and then using that to kind of imbue the product with a sense of like connotations, and like with particular connotations that are, this thing is intrinsic to the process of this celebrity becoming, whether it's becoming their alter ego or whether it's like this celebrity going from like, okay, we're going to do this, we're getting ready, to doing it and executing it flawlessly, and like, impressing the crowd, and like the roar of the crowd, and like the glare of like the phone lights, like a sea of lights, that kind of thing that you can kind of communicate with like framing, like how you like the camera angles and how you frame particular shots, and like whether you like play around with color grading and like lens flare type things. So I think that could be quite interesting. And I think a good product for that could be mascara, because obviously it's already got those certain connotations of like added fierceness, and by extension like confidence, and by extension like a certain, I don't even know what you want to call it, but like not like a certain like like becoming a certain character version of yourself, I feel, or like a more bold, yeah, like a bolder version of yourself, literally, like making your eyelashes look bolder, by extension making you like bolder. You can even see it in the way that makeup brands, like this is normal ones you find in the shops, not attached to anybody, the way they kind of do their like campaigns and like their photo shoots, and like the kind of copy that they use to like describe the effects and like describe why you should buy theirs and not someone else's. So I think that could be really, really cool. So again, like it's like tapping into that sense of the narrative, like acting as like you know, when you're bowling, those railings that come up so that you don't throw the ball into the gutter immediately and like have to walk sadly back to your seat and like know that you get 0 points. Having that, but for an advert. So I think that could be really cool. You could even do like a like yeah, lots of ideas there which I could kind of go on and on about, but that would be the way I would approach it. And I think in turn, the perfume adverts could definitely benefit from. I think I do understand the difficulty, but I feel like kind of toning down some of the artistic, like absurdist elements, and then tapping more into like consistency. You see where this kind of maps onto the current approach of like a celebrity beauty brand, in that like they have their studio set up, or the like particular colors that they use, and like it's really hard to kind of explain it, but just the way that they brand it is it's more down to earth. Exactly. It's like tapping a little bit more into that down to earth sense, I think could benefit the perfume brands, simply because it's too saturated with flying animals, man. It's too saturated with like just different things happening all at once, to the point where you can't like, obviously you can kind of attach a campaign to a particular perfume, but you wouldn't necessarily be able to gauge the added like value, or the added like quality or preference for the scent of one perfume over another. And I think that's something that obviously you need to do that if you want to actually like sell it beyond someone just being like, oh, that was cool when like he turned into like a bird and flew away. Like I thought that was so cool, I'm gonna buy the perfume. Or like, oh, I saw this person that I like in the advert, I thought it was so cool, I'm gonna buy the perfume. The latter obviously can work, but I think to push past that, you know, why not go for a little bit more down to earth? You can still be artistic, you can still be whimsical, but yeah, just shake it up a bit. It's like it's just like with other things in life. When things go too much one way, the like momentum swings the pendulum back in the other direction. And I feel like if you can be a first mover for that swing back, then you could obviously like take up a lot of ground, and a lot of like be known for that like repositioning or rebranding. Like for example, how what example will I use now? Like there was a good example, but I've now forgotten it. Oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah, so you know how we were talking about in the Bratz and Barbie episode about how like Y2K makeup trends were all about a certain type of like for each element of like a face, for example, like brows, eyes, lips, like the foundation, different things like that. There was a particular look that was fashionable for each of those elements, but then Bratz kind of inverted each of those elements, or inverted the like what do you call, like stereotypically accepted version of each of those elements. So in the same way, that's just like how real life fashion like went from like the very thin eyebrows, like almost like 1920s esque, like pencil thin eyebrows, or like literally penciled eyebrows, like not wanting that sort of hair texture to be part of the aesthetic and intentionally going away from that, to by like 2016 it looked completely different. It was like all about getting those like the hair like look of the brown, like it being full and sculpted in a particular way, and even like people drawing like more of the hairs, like flick, like the lines of the hairs, drawing more of that to tap more into that aesthetic and that like I guess accepted version of beauty that was getting popular at the time. So just like with fashion, with branding and other things in life, it gets to a point where people get tired. They're like, it's tiring, it's snoozeville, it's okay, maybe it's not snoozeville, but it's like no longer effective. It's no longer doing the thing that it's meant to do, whether it's like through shock factor or through being different. Now everybody's doing it. So you do need to kind of go back to the drawing board, and then not necessarily like you shouldn't just like wake up and then just say we're doing the opposite of what we're doing. We're gonna shake things up. We're just gonna anything that we're doing, just do the opposite. Just do the inverse of it. You do have to do that like research into the target audience and research into like what they want and what they're responding to before you do the swing back. Because not only does it show you like what you should swing to, and like almost like if you're kind of catapulting your brand in one like direction, it almost shows you that target that you should aim for, because you could throw it in that direction and then still go off target because it's still the inverse, but it's just not what anybody wants. But then not only does it give you that precision to actually hit the target of what people will respond to, and then by extension, like what version of that swing back will be successful, but it also shows you if that swing back is actually like, if it's the right time for that. Because sometimes you can perceive that, oh, this market's getting stale, we're all looking similar, like all our campaigns are looking similar, time for a shake up, time for something new, shake it up, and then you add like you investigate with the target audience, and then they're like, no, I'm kind of good with it, like I'm okay, like I'm like nobody's asking for that change. Then sometimes it can be a sign that you don't actually have to change, and maybe what you have to change is the actual like thing that you're offering that you've branded in this particular way, so you don't have to change the branding, but you have to change the thing that you're branding, the product, or you have to change like the messaging, but the branding stays the same, or you have to change like there's something that you can diagnose as the issue as to why I think like sales are slowing down. But sometimes it's not the branding, is what I'm trying to say. But then I think that's kind of sometimes a little bit rare, or like at least a little bit less common than the first example that I gave, which was like if you sense things are getting stale, it's likely that the audience has been sensing it from like a little bit before you, because obviously you're like seeing it from the internal perspective and they're seeing it from the external, where they have like other options and they have like other sort of context overlapping and like coloring their judgment and things like that. So they're obviously going to have a different perspective. So yeah, I think that is basically those are basically my thoughts on like celebrity brands, like especially beauty brands, and how they can kind of take a few like things from like perfume ads and not perfume ads, from car adverts, and how perfume ads and car adverts can kind of take a few things from what they're doing. They're kind of more down to earth, like almost like how an influencer launches like a product type of thing. Yeah, but I think it's all really interesting. And again, this is not to say, oh, this particular person, oh, they're bad at business. No, no, no. Their stuff is not selling. Their stuff is boring. Like obviously, I'm not talking about any particular like celebrity brand in this kind of breakdown. And even if I were, like, I'm not into kind of bashing what people do, especially if like someone's put effort into that. Someone's like, even if it is a white label drop shipping type of situation, someone took the time to do that. So I don't really feel like bashing them would do anything for like me. So I wouldn't really do that. But yeah, this is just thoughts, just musings basically, because I like kind of digging into the strategy of beauty businesses, as you well know by this point. So yeah. And another thing I wanted to do was, last week when I was talking about the movie IPs and like all, for example, how if they tapped into the Harley Quinn sort of craze with like Harley Quinn athleisure, Harley Quinn like wigs, Harley Quinn like makeup, like how influencers do like collaborations with different like Tarte cosmetics, or they do it with like Morphe, or I don't know the other brands, but if you go on YouTube, I'm sure they are still like ubiquitous. But if they had done a thing of like Harley Quinn X Morphe or Harley Quinn X like Tarte, even though she's not a person, and you kind of like market it to that audience of like people who are into that whole beauty influencer space, but they're also into this particular fandom, I think that would be really successful. And also, I wanted to say, like, I do feel like these things are kind of time dependent because obviously, like, even though, no, yeah, I would say it's fair to say that the Harley Quinn sort of focus campaigns would not be as effective right now, especially because I just think this is a whole other story, but I think there's a lot happening in the whole like superhero IP space, and I'm not talking about like, oh, Marvel is dead, everyone has gone woke, and that's why they're failing. Blah, blah, blah. I'm not talking about that kind of like um conspiracy peddling. I don't really agree with that, but that's a whole other. I think that's even like a whole other show. Like a lot to unpack there, and I think a lot of factors that make it seem like that people are kind of mistaking correlation for causation in that sort of space. But anyway, even aside from that, I think it's just like too much time has passed, and it's kind of like she's no longer kind of captivating the zeitgeist in the same way that she did in 2016. So it's definitely very time dependent, and it's definitely one of those things where you have to strike while the iron is hot, which is why it's important to be like going to where the fans hang out and like doing that market research in a timely and almost like proactive and preemptive way to kind of pick up on trends when they're in that like early adopter phase, and like going into like the curve is just beginning to increase of like when it's becoming like like properly popular culture and like embedding itself in the pop culture um like sort of feeling of that year. You need to kind of you need to kind of preempt that so that your launch coincides with that increase. It's like not when it's increasing that you start doing product development research and you start like that whole process. You need to kind of like launch it when it's still hot. So it's kind of like you need to have started a little bit before that. But I think that's again like a whole other thing of like you could spend a lot of time really unpacking how you could go like bit by bit approaching a sort of beauty products like merch IP tie-in kind of campaign. But I think it would be definitely really interesting, and it's definitely something that I just like even on my own I just think about and kind of break down for fun. But I'm interested, what would you guys say is the like character or like not necessarily IP in terms of like a whole franchise or a whole like I'm not talking about like for example the MCU as a collective. I'm talking about who is that character for this moment. Like if Harley Quinn was 2016, who is 2023? And I honestly don't know if that would be like a like a movie franchise kind of character, or maybe it would have to be actually because TV shows are a bit too fragmented and like not everyone has watched the same show, but then movies are a little bit more like generalized in terms of their global releases, and so it's a bit more everyone coming to up to speed with that element of pop culture at the same time or within the same release window. So yeah, I would kind of put the question to you guys: who is that? Who is that fictional character for this moment that a brand should definitely tap into, or like a parent company should definitely leverage with like a brand collaboration? I'd really love to hear your thoughts, and you can text the Braidar Instagram, which is all lowercase BRAIDAR_ on Instagram, and just let me know your thoughts. I'm really curious about that. And in the meantime, I hope you have a great rest of Saturday, great rest of the weekend. Stay dry if you're somewhere rainy, and I will see you next week. Thanks for listening.